Welcome back to Making Money Matter, ladies and gentlemen. He's back, Tony Lecantro. And now for something completely different, ladies and gentlemen, because we haven't had Tony on for a while. And both Tony and I have been doing a little bit about our health, because I know at the moment there's this appears to be quite a lot of stress in the world. And I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, stress will kill you. And I know for a fact that I am very guilty of being stressed, because in just a little over 2 weeks' time, we have the Australian Gold Conference, which Tony Lecantro, the slimline Tony, will be speaking about investor versus speculator. So we're going to get into that. But I thought for something completely different, I wanted to just pick Tony's brain a little bit. I've got myself on a much more even keel, I guess, and a much more healthy routine. And it's finally showing. It's taken a very long time, but it's showing. And Tony, I know that you are on the carnivore diet. So one of the things that I thought we could just have a quick chat about before we get into the markets, etc., was, you know what, if we don't have our health, it doesn't matter how much money you've got or how much love you've got. Without your health, you're screwed. So I just want to know, what was the tipping point for you?
Well, I've my weight's ballooned over the years, and I was looking back. I went and saw Slash in LA. This is around the GFC. I think it was about 2008, and I saw a video of myself waiting in line to buy a guitar to meet him, and I looked horrible. And I just thought, is that how bad I let it get to?
Yeah.
And I can, when your some scales only go up to 120, and I'd max them out pretty much. And it was just a lifestyle of excessive alcohol. Obviously, it's been a stockbroker, high pressure job, lots of shit food, lots of all day lunches at a Chinese restaurant with copious
Ooh.
amounts of wine. And it just got to the point where initially I was sitting there on New Year's Eve 2022 drinking a low calorie bubbles, which, I mean, dirty cat's piss in a sponge would have tasted better.
Oh.
And I said, that's it. I'm going to take some time off alcohol. So I haven't had a drink now in 20 months. That's easy. I've never been interested in Red Bull. I just don't understand energy drinks. I don't understand Red Bull, Monster. And the way I see alcohol now is I'm not going to go up and buy a bloody Red Bull. So alcohol's easy. At your conference, I'll be going after the sparkling mineral water. But what was happening is I then found the gym. And I was a bit allergic to pain, so I just did the bike and a bit of treadmill and got no results. I then started weight training, which I now do 6 days a week. No results. No results. My weight was cruising along at 103, 104. Then I saw Dr. Anthony Chaffee on 60 Minutes. Convinced carnivore. I've read everything. People will say, well, you've done all your research. It's a load of shit. No, I've made myself a guinea pig, and 20 kilos gone, mental energy through the roof. And I think in my line of work, I want to be the sober one, totally focused one behind the screen, fighting with the people on the other side, because speculation is psychological warfare. And it's no good to clients if I'm in bed with a hangy or don't feel at my best. Yeah. And I've gotten used to it. At the moment, I'm buying ground beef. Just put a bit of bacon in with it. I always suss out specials on the meat. And I guess my treat, when Juliana and I go to Southeast Asia, I will have fresh coconut, which does have a lot of saturated fat. So where we transitioned was going from all these dinner meal kits.
Oh yeah.
Bit of portion control, but I found out that when you look at the meal, it's just way too much rice, grain, couscous, and pretty much rice and grains just converts to sugar. It's crap. You look at studies between white rice and brown rice. there's not really a huge difference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and watermelon has a higher glycemic index than a Twix bar. And you learn it's amazing stuff that, you know, if you cook your rice in coconut oil, the glycemic index or your sugar spikes reduced.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so what the culprit is of the health epidemic has been Harvard scientists were paid off to say sugar is not the enemy, it was fats. I think they were paid 65 grand each. Ansel Keys, the two ugly words, buried a study which would have showed that cholesterol and saturated fat wasn't the marker for heart disease. There's a lot of stuff coming out on cholesterol at the moment. And that's what's going to scare people off carnivore, because you need cholesterol to live. But controversially, some are saying that the higher your LDL, the longer you live. So that's flips health on its head. But what I've learned is it's all relative to your triglycerides, HDL measurements. And I actually ordered this book. I've just finished it. Lies I Taught in Medical School by Robert Lufkin. And Robert Lufkin's well worth following on X. And what he does quite well is saying that carbohydrates, seed oils, which he calls the hateful eight, these things were built to lubricate machinery, and the US just loads their foods with it. And similar in Australia. And there's also a little bit there on cancer, mental health, but it's all metabolic disease, which is driving everything. So I just want to give myself the best possible chance of staying fit and not being embarrassed to walk around thinking I look okay when I actually look horrible. So it's been a whole process for me. And one area I see growing is going to be low carb doctors, because what's happened with medicine is these doctors haven't changed. They've just gone to medical school and they prescribe statins, blood pressure pills, all these medications. Studies have shown that statins would be lucky to add a few days to your life, and you've got all these horrific side effects. So what's coming out now is that medicine's being flipped on its head, and there's more doctors now saying that the low carb lifestyle is the way to go. And what Lufkin does, Kerry, is he says, well, you either go vegan or carnivore, but he doesn't go into the pros and cons of each. So you can choose your own adventure, but it's tough. I've just cut out diet soft drink. I now have.
I've done the same. I've got my water here, but I was a big Pepsi Max, Diet Coke, Coke Zero. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's it leads to insulin resistance. It's going to make you actually crave sugar.
Yep.
So I've just switched to infused mineral water. The Schweppes infused mineral waters, I think, are the closest thing to soft drink. So that's been a change. I've given up milks, pretty much carbohydrates and sugar.
Okay.
I've switched to black coffee.
I like my milk, Tony.
Well, it's that if you're going to go on a low carb diet, you have a few coffees a day, and then you're getting your sugar and carb intake, Kerry. But I know we all can't be perfect. We've all got to have some vices. As I said, my partner actually caught me.
Go on.
She caught me. She came home, walked in the door, and I was eating Parmesan cheese from the bag with a spoon. And I can never get away with it because there's always evidence around the kitchen. But cheese is okay. But I've cut out most dairy. And
cheese is okay. Listen, I just wanted to show you something, because you said right at the start that you were a fat git back at Slash buying a guitar, but we don't know, do we? And have a look at this. Can you see that? This is a friend of mine, really good friend of mine, Shano. And the top picture The top picture was us in 2017.
Yeah.
The bottom picture was us a couple of months ago. We're not partners, we're just really good mates.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. No one says a word when you're a fat kid.
No.
They don't. So I've said to some friends of mine, I've said, listen, if I ever get like that, because you don't know, it just creeps up, creeps up, creeps up. You have no idea. And you make excuses. Like I used to make excuses that, oh, that the sizes must be wrong. It's not me, it's the manufacturer. Or, oh, this belt must have shrunk in the wash. Well, you don't put belts in the wash. There were all sorts of things that I would convince myself was the reason. It wasn't me, it was somebody else. And I think until you come to that realization, and also, Tony, as you said, do the work. Like it's not just
it's hard.
do.
It's hard work.
But here's the thing. If you tell yourself it's hard work, it'll be hard work. If you tell yourself it's not that hard, it's not that hard. So I often say to people, be careful. Thoughts are things and words are powerful. It's not hard. When I'm at the gym and the trainer says to me, let's go for 12 kilos, and my immediate reaction is, oh, there's no way I can lift 12 in each arm. No way. And then I turn my brain off and I go, oh my God, 12 kilos, that's nothing. Bang, yeah. Off I go. So I think for me, it's how we speak to ourselves. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, some of you speak to yourselves like you're the worst enemy in the world. So stop that. Like just stop it and stop buying shit to put in your mouth. And as Tony said, we were talking off camera before, just don't buy anything with a label on it. A lot of these supermarkets go around the edges, but don't go internally, because all these, if you read the ingredients, it's kind of scary. So buy things without labels and you'll be much better. And as Tony said, you want to be sharp. Tony's an advisor with Alto Capital. He wants to be sharp for his clients, and especially at the moment. Just a quick one, Tony. I always do it in threes. Give us 3 pieces of advice that you would say to people watching this right now that go, oh, I could probably do a little bit better with my health, because health is everything.
Okay. Focus on protein, fats, and carbs.
And carbs? I thought you said no carbs.
Well, no. When you have a meal,
yeah,
you've got to eat. You go for the fat, protein, and if you must have carbs or vegetables, eat them last. So that's on a traditional plate. I think the other thing I'd suggest is get in the gym and do weight training. None of this on the treadmill, trying to look great on the exercise bike. I think cardio improves your overall health, but the best thing you can do for longevity, strength in old age is weight training. And I was scared of weight training previously, but now 6 days a week. And in between my repetitions, I walk around the gym. So I wear a step counter as well. Also, what I've found for my health is I've started playing paddle, which is it's a cross between tennis and squash.
Oh.
And it's taking off. I know Cristiano Ronaldo spent $15 million building a centre in Portugal. All the Formula One drivers play it. I play socially once a week. I play with my 16-year-old son, and it's just an amazing game. And what it gives you is constant dopamine hits because you're involved in a rally the whole time. The air pressure of the ball's different. And a lot of tennis wives, even up to into their 70s, are good players. So take up a sport which is good for you mentally. Just get away from the screen. And I just think you've got to delve deeper into all the absolute bullshit on the market, like Kellogg's. He came up with breakfast is the most important meal of the day, thinking about 1919.
Mm-hmm.
And controversially, if you read up on it, he developed breakfast cereal to stop masturbation and female sexual pleasure The guy was religious. Oh, yeah. That's why this shit food was developed. And I've actually tweeted that, and it's all there. You just got to research it, that he was a bit of a religious nut. And this breakfast cereal, if you look at the carbs and sugar, is essentially 3/4 of it is sugar, shit. I know in Victoria, they're looking at giving kids breakfast. It'll probably be rice bubbles, when in fact you should be having bacon and eggs, and a clean sausage without as much shit in it. So I just see I can't see how big pharma's going to allow this to happen. So I just think you've got to do your own research. If you must eat bread, which is breads, there's no such thing as a healthy bread, even sourdough.
Mm-hmm.
The healthiest bread you'll probably find in France, because there's not as many obese people in France or Japan. So white bread, brown bread, if you must eat that complete garbage, which it is, freeze it.
Yeah, I do.
Freeze the bread, reduces that. I gave you the tip on rice, cook it in coconut oil, get rid of canola, sunflower, all the other crap oils. That's probably been the main culprit of the health epidemic. I cook all my stuff in lard, ghee, and the other trick I've got is to use bacon grease as well. So I cook a lot of my food in bacon grease. I've given up all that. Weight's dropped off. At the fittest I've ever been. And I can now fit into a size S shirt. So yeah, I've donated a lot to charity.
Good.
But I tell you what, living clean becomes addictive.
Yes, it does.
You're addicted to it. You can be addicted to wine tasting nights, which me and Juliana were. And to me, it sparks no joy. You wake up with an incredible hangover.
Yeah.
You're the last person at a party drinking $10 shitty wine, and all you want to do is leave. And I've got the perfect excuse to leave early. I just say, everyone, I'll leave you drunks to it.
Love it. Love it. Well, you're not going to get me completely off the wine, but I used to have a glass of wine every single day. And now, oh gosh, when was the last? I think I had a glass of wine last Friday night. And what are we now talking to you on Friday? So I don't have to have alcohol every single day, but to have it every now and again. I'm not going to be as pure as you, Tony, because I know that you're not drinking alcohol at all.
No.
But I think everything in moderation for me, but I have gone a little bit hard with the exercise, and you get addicted to it. I now call myself a gym junkie, because if I don't go at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, then I feel really yuck. So, ladies and gentlemen,
that's incredible, and that's fantastic progress. And I hope I've had a little bit to do with it.
Because you have. I was getting a bit jealous there as your frame shrunk, and I went, all right, okay, let's try something that Tony's doing. So I did. I was listening to some of the stuff that you were doing. I thought, I'll cut back on the alcohol. I'll cut back on the sugar. I'll cut back on the carbs. And I've cut back quite a lot. And the other thing that I do, Tony, is I don't have those breakfast cereals anymore. But what I do have is I have a can of tuna at about 11 o'clock.
Yep.
And then if I'm not out seeing people for dinner, then I'll have a meal at about 4 o'clock, and I'm done. I don't need to have 3 meals a day anymore.
Yeah, no, we're spoiled here. One of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet is actually pork belly.
Oh,
and
fatty.
Yeah, you can't do it.
Too fatty. Again,
but that's the whole idea.
I know.
That's the whole idea. Why do they say, Kerry, eat fatty fish? What's the difference between a fatty salmon and pork belly? Look at the nutritional value of it. And it's amazing. It's in the top 20. It's more recommended than eating. You might as well, if you're eating kale, it might as well be cardboard. But all this superfood stuff is a complete crock. It's all marketing.
Yeah.
But I eat a lot of meat. We're probably due for another pork belly, and I lost no weight doing weights. And then suddenly you go carnivore. You don't have to calorie count. and then 20 kilos gone. And my aim is to be as cut as a kilo of cocaine. That's my aim.
Well, that's a good way to stop and go on to the next section of this
Yes.
conversation,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
Hopefully we won't.
That's a conversation killer. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely killed the conversation. So let's get on to something else, which is a little bit crazy at the moment, which is the markets. And that's what our beautiful audience out there are saying, what should we do? Now, Tony, for me, I'm looking at these markets going, I did go back in on my own account and I had some cash and I sitting on the sides, and I thought I'll keep sitting on the sides. And I went back in about a month ago. I went in too early, but you know what? Couple of biggies, just BHP and Wesfarmers, nothing else. But the markets are still very jittery. My question to you is now the time to pick up the bargains, or are we going to see a little bit more blood in the streets?
Too much complacency for a start. No one, the S&P 500, driven by the Magnificent Seven, stupid prices. AI, just another bubble. I don't care. When you're in a bubble, you think it's never going to end, like .com or everything ending in IUM, right? You know, and then it turns into a modium, which is a saying I probably use too much, but that's IUM costs people a lot of money. But AI, you know, what's there? Okay, it's not going to replace humans. Yes, Nvidia got to stupid levels, and then suddenly the Magnificent Seven drop $1 trillion Australian dollars in market cap because it was the mother of all bubbles. You got Warren Buffett selling half his Apple. It was a complacency bubble allowed to fester where Australian investors and speculators have been spoiled by having no real index pressure. And now we've had 1,000-point off night. Our market will tend to react to the futures. So you might see 1,000 points down on the Dow, but our market actually went up. But in the small caps, the valuations are even more ridiculous because every time we go through this period, I've had a heap of these over 26 years. You are going to get a handful of people that will sell their stocks. End of story. It doesn't matter if it's a potential 10-bagger, 5 to 10-bagger, they'll still sell. A little bit of fear overcomes the potential to make a lot of money. And again, the majority in speculation fail. A Canadian figure said 97% will fail in this game. And that's exactly true. But fear overnight, a little bit of selling in our stocks will stop people from making money. They'll be scared. They mightn't want to buy anything. I mean, you can buy companies where the intrinsic value of the gold with their other assets is less than $20 an ounce into a $2,397 US gold price. And I've seen some economic studies saying that these projects are grossly undervalued. It's hard because I'll say, look, stick to these stocks with fundamentals. But unfortunately now, since we went through the speculative bubble in the IUMs, we're seeing companies pick up stuff ending in IUM now in other countries. And that's like showing up to a piss up at 3 a.m. holding a vegan pizza. It's too late. No one bloody wants it. And I know through going through these bubbles that when you see, even when I saw a company go .com in the .com bubble, that was insanity. You got to rush your dopamine. And that's across all sectors. That was uranium, cobalt, bloody farm animals, childcare centers, retractable syringes. That's what these things did. But once the dopamine goes, you can have the best fundamentals in a sector that no one wants. And unfortunately, a lot of these companies that have picked up projects have now got to deal with them. But what I think they'll do is tiptoe through the tulips and wait for the next bubble and then jump on that bandwagon. So that's the speculative stock playbook. I have had some stocks that obviously haven't worked. We had a dry hole in Triangle Energy. Yeah, the risk was 5 to 10 times our money. The downside was 50 to 60%. It was a dry well. The stock halved.
Wow.
But that's a risk reward, Kerry.
Yeah,
My
100%.
clients know the odds. But what I've said to them constantly is that I had my 3 core stocks. I've now extended that to the Fab 4. So I've got 4 core stocks, and these are the stocks I want in a client's top order. What I mean by that is when I click on the percentage of your portfolio, I want them in the top 4.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with the shittiest spec market I've ever seen,
Yep.
especially for biotechs, the tail isn't wagging. So there's a long tail. Do you hang on to them? Well, the fundamentals are still good and they're still progressing, a lot of them clinical trials, but they've been absolutely slaughtered. So yeah, it's tough. And those that looked at the world and said, okay, markets are irrational, they're overvalued. B-Bus is only, and SNAS, the one that bets against the NASDAQ,
Yep.
have been slaughtered. Now they're starting to provide some protection. So we've had an indices fly, and the Australian spec market is now providing the most ridiculous oversold value I've ever seen. It's just, this is actually a phenomenon. Oh God, I managed to say that. I've never seen before, but when value is at its greatest, clients are holding back. I've got a few that will keep buying. They're actually enjoying it. But some of these companies with resources are capped sub $10 million now. But the real rubbish, the companies that have nothing, are going to start trading around that 3 mil market cap, and you might even see lower. So
Wow.
yeah, it's the toughest period I've had to go through. Markets normally, you don't have a lot of fads. So between .com and uranium, it was pretty much 4.5, 5 years of nothingness.
So I know you're coming, and I don't want to take away all your thunder for the Australian Gold Conference, where you can talk about investor versus speculator. But let me just ask one quick question, and people can come along to the talk and hear you talk, in depth. But in a brief way, are you better off being an investor or a speculator in these markets?
In these markets, you're best to buy quality junior companies that have in-ground resources, that have management that will not destroy the share structure.
Right.
So I've got 3 clear companies in that category. I know I talk about them quite a bit, but why would I stray into something else that, pretty much Morona Metals, Red Metal, and Saturn Metals? They're the 3 that I keep harping on to clients. Yes, they're boring, but these companies transform. So what you do, you have I take it as the rock group approach. You have your rhythm section. We're talking about spec portfolios. Yep. And then you have your vocalist and your lead guitarist. You have something that could provide you with that 5 to 10 bagger, big drill hole, big clinical breakthrough. So I think what you need to do is have a solid foundation for your portfolio, and then you have some stuff around it. But unfortunately, a lot of the stuff around it, despite being good, has been unloved. They've struggled to raise money. That drags you down. And we do need some stock rotation. And that's missing at the moment. If Triangle Energy was successful at that booth 1, we'd be rotating now. But okay, they did their best. It came up with nothing in it. It's a slap along the way. But if you're serious into being a solid person in small caps, you are going to get slapped a lot of the way. You're going to feel stupid at times. You're going to see indices down over 1,000 points. and the next day 5 or 6 sellers will totally destroy your spreadsheet. But there's no way you can't dodge it. You can't dodge it. You can't buy here. You can't go back in a DeLorean and say, I should have bought here, should have sold there. That's crap. But if you're too reliant on dopamine, if you refresh your share prices every 5 minutes, to be honest, you probably shouldn't be in the market.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I often say that to people about the gold price, because they look at the gold price and go, oh, it went down today. I'm like, yeah, well, why don't you look at it over the past 20 years or even over the past year, where the Australian dollar has fallen by 25% against the gold price, 25%. Now, that's only happening because governments around the world keep printing currency into oblivion. So my passion is to wake people up. Now, 2 of those stocks that you mentioned, Maronan, that's in the money. And I don't mean that in the way you think, ladies and gentlemen. They're in the money because it's a silver lead deposit, but silver is the money part of it. And if you look at the supply demand for silver, it's going to get very, very interesting. So Richard Carlton will be at the Gold Conference, and Saturn Metals, Ian Bamborough, really interesting, but they're in a boring part of the progress of coming into a mine. They will become a mine, but right now it's the boring part. So no one's paying attention. And Rick Rule often says it, Tony, and I know you do as well. You know, when it's really, really boring and no one's watching, that's when you come in and have a bit of a go. So both Saturn and Maronan, maybe Rob Rutherford will turn up and walk the corridors of the Australian Gold Conference. And I just want to say to everybody out there, the reason we do this is because it's money and there are opportunities for you to understand and get educated. And Tony will talk about the difference between an investor and a speculator, and he'll be there for the whole of the conference. So you can go and, you know, poke his little skinny tummy and ask.
No, my talk will be a little bit more than that. Because I've got different style of clients, and dealing with thousands of people, I can get a quick impression who's going to make it. And I think that will provide a bit of an interesting backdrop. And I just think I've always got to remember to focus, to go boring. But there are going to be some biotech companies that will get through this melee and go into multiple dollars through success. You've just got to pick them. And unfortunately, this is the market where you should be buying as opposed to panicking. And there has been some cheap placements, right? So people get their placement stock and they'll sell it straight away because it goes to people that don't want to hold, that don't care about the company. They just want a stag profit. Or if they get the sweetener of some options, they'll sell the stock and keep the options. So I'm up against it at the moment, where my clients are up against it. We have been for a couple of years. We've built good positions. We're solidified in the boring stocks that I've mentioned. But I've seen these boring stocks come through over 26 years. Some of them will have a major discovery. Some of them will get taken over, and some will they might just head towards production and actually get there. But it's often what you don't know that drives the upside. And that one example came from Northern Star. Bill bought Paulson's, initially 27 mil. He had to pay 40. And now look at Northern Star, 1 cent to $15 at one point.
Yeah, back to about.
It can happen. It can happen, and it can happen to you. Don't think you're jinxed. Remember that this is a fantastic game, risk reward. As long as you know, sometimes you might halve your money on a dud drill hole, but then you've got 5 to 10 times. And what I plead to my clients is, don't blow it on depreciating assets. Put some away for tax, and buy something worthwhile, and just don't buy garbage, because it does get addictive. And what I've noticed, that when one of your stocks is flying, you are getting the dopamine, you feel good, you just think this thing can go on forever. Yeah. And now you regret not selling. And I've said all along, selling on the way down is really hard to do. You've got to, you know, when the ducks are quacking, you've got to feed them.
Yeah, and you know, Tony and I spoke, it was probably in the middle of last year about a particular stock. And Tony said, you'll never go broke, Kez, taking a profit. Did I listen? Did I help? Because it's the psychology of the market that hooks you in. And the biggest advice I can give people is you will never go broke taking a profit, but the psychology of actually pulling the trigger to do that can sometimes be a little bit tricky. It's your money, it's your wealth. You need to take care of it, or you need to talk to Tony and say, Tony, you take care of it. But Tony's not going to have all the winners. And this, by the way, is not financial advice. Neither of us know your particular personal situation. So there's no way we can advise you at all. This is just Tony's views at the moment and what he's seeing in the market. So, Tony, the last word, of course, as always, goes to you.
2 words, eat meat.
Love it. Love it. Good. I better make sure that because the other thing we've got Vince Sorrenti as our comedian, making us all laugh on the Tuesday, the 27th of August at the annual Gold Awards this year. So I better make sure that we have the right meal for you, Tony.
Steak and salt with a side of prawns and a dozen South Australian oysters. Dozen South Australian oysters.
Yeah, well, okay. So you're going down to the Rocks for dinner then, I guess.
Yeah, but no, I'm not going to lash out during my conference. And Juliana is looking forward to your gluten-free selection. Apparently, it was the best she's ever had.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yes.
All right. Well, guess what? It's taste testing day in the next couple of days. So I've picked everything, but I'm going to remember what you said, and I'll ask them about. And that was last year, was it? Or no?
Yeah.
Was it?
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. All right. Well, I'd better make sure.
Your gluten-free was top shelf.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you. It's only a couple of weeks from now. Make sure you tell all your clients to come to the Gold Conference, because what I am passionate about is we have to wake up, you know, it's the old wake up Australia, because gold is money, silver is money, everything else is credit, but the opportunity and the leverage with the stocks and the companies that we've got there, you know, many of them I have got skin in the game with, not all of them, but we do pick and choose who's there. So it's a great agenda this year. Tony, I will very much look forward to having you there. And everyone out there, if you're coming to the Gold Conference, make sure you, as I said, poke your skinny little tummy and ask him the questions. Tony Lecantro, great to see you.
Sounds good.
Cheers.